Hello, Team Focus. Greetings from Greece. I'm here on my Christmas holidays. How are you doing?
We're doing great, Chryssa. Thank you.
Are you in London, Neville?
No, I'm actually about 30 miles west of London, a town called Wokingham, a small town in the countryside.
Oh, yes.
So,
That's right.
yeah, pretty cold here. Not as nice weather where you are, undoubtedly, in Greece.
Actually, it's minus 10 degrees at the moment and snowing. There's a snowstorm outside, so
Oh,
it's
my
good
God.
to chat with you here.
Okay, you've got it worse than we have, even though it's cold here. So, and of course, Renjith in Dubai is enjoying, no doubt, wonderful weather, I expect.
In fact, it's 14 degree today.
You bragger. Yes, okay.
But I guess 14 degrees in Dubai, I think women start wearing boots and scarves already.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we have started wearing it.
Yes.
Usually it is more than that.
We're here today to discuss the future potentials of communication and collaboration techniques. Fujitsu has a very well-written and explicit vision of their vision of the Human Centric Intelligent Society, which offers a wide array of communication and collaboration possibilities. So I'd like to hear your ideas and your opinions. So where do you think business communication will be going in the next 10 years or so?
I feel this augmented reality, that will be the future of business interactions. Because as you know, this wearable technology has already started in these days. So augmented reality within the wearable technology will be the future.
Okay.
So it has many things like a virtual meetings and all. These things will come in augmented reality.
Neville, what do you think?
Well, that's interesting what Renjith said about augmented reality and indeed wearable technology. I would tend to agree with his view that these will be big. I think they will be a part of the future, but I don't see them as being the major part. I think, to me, more significance is going to be the requirement, if you will, in behavioral changes by people to embrace some of these new technologies, which to many people are pretty scary things. They represent significant change. So you won't see anything uniform, I don't believe. And indeed, looking at what Fujitsu sees in their human-centric, or their vision, if you will, of human-centric ICT, is something that empowers people. And of course, those things that Renjith mentioned do that, yet not everyone agrees that they do. And so we're already seeing, I suppose, the first wave of some of these technologies that are coming in where they're experimental and we're learning as we go. But it's a very interesting time. And I think we will see some major shifts in how we communicate in business specifically in the coming 1 to 2 years, never mind 10. That's how I see it. What about you, Chryssa?
I agree with both of you. And the first thing that came to my mind was also augmented reality. And you mentioned also about the wearable technology. I was in the Fujitsu forum earlier this year, and Dr. Joseph Renger, the CTO of Fujitsu, talked about in a very interesting keynote about the fact that IT and computers are crawling into our skin. So from the mainframe computers that were, if we were lucky in our country, to being lucky in being in our building, in our room, in our desk, they're coming on top of us, very close to our skin, on top of our skin. So I think this ties with what you mentioned also in Fujitsu's vision about the human-centric society, intelligent society, where the human is at the forefront, at the center. And I think with the use of different tools and technology, the human can really be heard, and their needs can be heard also in the personal sphere with sensors and wearable technology, but also in business. For instance, I was thinking about firstly the possibilities and opportunities that collaboration tools are offering, but then I realized that there are lots of challenges as well. For instance, even in our chat at the moment. We struggle. We had difficulties. Of course, we made it happen. But I'm just wondering, a few years from now, our children or us in the near future, how we will tackle this challenge? How will we have technology on top of our skin, in lenses in our eyes that could, with the use of augmented reality, be having a conference with people miles away, half a planet away, and yet having the overall experience very near to us and very realistic. So I think that radical changes are happening in the near future.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think what you've described there, or that need to see how we are able to do some of the things that we envision happening. For instance, being able to make a phone call, either audio or video, wherever you happen to be, on a device that is on you, whether it's part of what you would describe as a wearable device of some kind, into clothing or whatever it might be. Google Glass type eyewear, for instance, that contains
or lenses that are in your eye.
Sure, those things those things are already here. Some experimental, but some more than that.
That's true.
So you could see this happening in, I would say, urban centers in developed countries. I think of perhaps particular interest is how these tools would enable people, which fits that place to make a better place for people in some countries that will go past the legacies that we have in developed countries, which is landlines and all that old technology, straight to wireless communication with all these new generation of tools and channels to do all of these things. And it will create radical changes in those societies and how they connect with other human beings. So we're looking at not a uniform application of all of this across the world. It will be different in many, many places, depending on the landscape, the infrastructure, attitudes, behaviors, cultures, all of that. I mean, imagine the differences. I mean, look at us. We're talking on this call in 3 different countries. We are each of us from different countries.
And different time zones.
Yeah, right,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, I'm in the UK. You're currently in Greece, Chryssa. And here you can do anything. Renjith, you're in Dubai,
Dubai.
A more conservative place compared to, say, Western Europe, generally speaking. And there would be some things that people can't readily do there for cultural reasons that you can do here. Not that it's wrong, it's just different. So it's not uniform, this kind of thing. But it presents some very interesting opportunities for us, I suppose, who have a strong interest in this, but also for companies who are at the heart of, if you will, developing the capability, whether it's the technology or how it is used. Companies like Fujitsu with their vision, for instance, but lots of tech and non-tech businesses are working on this. So it's a very interesting time facing us in the next year or so, I would say. So the other thing, I suppose, thinking what you just said, Chryssa, I've got a smartwatch, for instance, that that connects to my smartphone. What it gives me is kind of a taste, if you will, of what you described. Meaning, for instance, I can take a phone call in the middle of a supermarket, which I have done, on the watch rather than having to fish out my phone. It alerts me when a call's coming. It alerts me to all sorts of things that I notice more than I do on a smartphone, partly because it's on my wrist and it's visible, it's noticeable all the time, whereas the phone might be in my pocket or in my briefcase or whatever. But we're not ready, I think, not yet anyway. When I took a call in the supermarket, people were looking at me a little weirdly. What's this guy doing here? Like he's in Star Trek or something. And it's kind of, we're not used to that yet. But it will become common. Yeah. We look at Google Glass and all those folks in Silicon Valley who wear that. And I've seen a few people in London with those, and they do look strange to our eyes today. Will these things become more common? I think the capability of what it lets people do will certainly do that, I would say.
Renjith?
Yes.
You wanted to say something?
Google Glass, it's banned here, sort of the privacy reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know, what about in your countries?
It's not banned, yeah. here or in Finland. I don't think it's. Are Google Glasses banned in Europe? I don't think so.
Not yet, no. Although there are
some concerns.
Yeah, you hear about people in various governments coming out with statements. Here in the UK, for instance, someone, a spokesman for some government department, talked about making them illegal to use when you're driving a car. And I think that to me makes common sense to do something like that. But it's too soon. Yet it's inevitable you'd have that kind of thing already happening. So I think any new technology that appears, emerges, that some people use in ways that others find unusual or different or concerning, will produce this kind of reaction. But we are at a time when the development of technologies, the implementation of them, what people can do with them, are at such a rapid pace, often outpacing what the regulatory environment might be in a particular country, makes it a concern to many. And that's probably where we're at now, where there are so many things. Look at drones, for instance, those little devices that can fly around and take videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, even drones are banned here.
Are they banned there? Okay,
it's
well,
crazy.
Yeah, it is. I think, again, that illustrates perhaps, Renjith, one of the differences I mentioned earlier, the
cultural differences, yes.
The attitudes to all of these things. So it won't be uniform, and we will see things like this. I think a big concern is one of privacy, data protection, and related issues where we are sharing information unwittingly about ourselves via many of these devices. It's connecting to networks. It's transmitting things that permit us to do things, but in exchange, it gives up some information about ourselves, and we may not be aware of the extent of that, and we certainly aren't aware of what's happening to that data. So those are issues, without doubt, that we will need to address as a society. But as these things develop, the debate begins to accelerate. And I think we're now at the point where this whole aspect of collaborative working, the empowerment of individuals by the use of these tools, opens up areas for great debate in terms of what I mentioned, but also things like I hear in the UK people talking about it widens the divide between the haves and the have-nots in society, meaning those who have access to data and information and those who don't. Will this increase that? And these are all society-level debates, but from a business point of view, you can see the benefit, I think, in all of these things. But alongside that benefit comes that concern about privacy and data protection and things like that. So all adds up to that interesting times we're in.
You mentioned about data, and I think that the more data, the more democratic I think the society become. And of course, I think that there are tools and there are gadgets that they are affordable, and I think, of course, I understand there is a great divide and there is great gap. However, there's due to different incentives and different decision makers. I think many people realize the democratic role of technology and how it can spread ideas. Of course, it could be used as a way to make people more, how should I say, by restricting them access to this technology. It's a way of controlling their thinking and their communication and their spreading of ideas. I think that what came to my mind while you were talking was the use of data. For instance, I'm an educator, so I'm interested in language and communication. And what came to my mind was, for instance, the Skype translator that or different translators that can not only use machines that are taught to analyze speech and conversation, but also they can perform translations and mimic the tone of voice and really make sense in another language. So, for instance, if there is a divide, let's say if we think about intercultural communication and collaboration between people of different cultures with different languages, if, let's say, English is not although it is a lingua franca globally, but if that's not the case, I think this is also a great way that people can be brought together and working together and solving problems together. So the obstacles are getting less. Of course, if we see the technology, for me, what's very important is to understand that the technology is not bad or good. This is what I explain to my students as well. The technology is a tool or a number of tools that enable us to do great things or bad things. It's like a knife. Right. You can cut bread, put butter on your bread, but also you can kill someone with a knife. Is the knife the problem? No. The problem is people. So that brings us back to the Human Centric Society, to what the society, the humans want to do with this technology. Do they want to use it or abuse it? I think this is one critical issue. I think that I think it ties with what you mentioned, the issues with privacy and the use or abuse of technology. But I want to be positive, of course. I see lots of technology as a great democratic way of spreading ideas, of enabling people, of great tools to enable communication and collaboration between people.
Totally agree with that. I think, as Fujitsu itself says, thinking about their Human Centric Intelligent Society, they talk about in how they look at what's coming. They say it's a long journey, and they're already taking steps on it. Totally agree with that. It is a long journey. And I would say this conversation is one of those small steps, really. At least we're discussing this. We're recognizing some of the hurdles that need to be surmounted along that journey. So you're right, though, Chris. I think I tend to focus more on the positive rather than the negative. So the knife spreads the butter rather than stab someone, even though it can, or rather an individual can do it with a knife. So in the same way, we're looking at all these tools and channels that are coming. I think one other aspect to it, which is complementary to all of it, is education awareness and where people have concerns. I'm a communicator, so part of my obligation in this would be not to just evangelize all of this stuff or be enthusiastic about it, but is to help the doubters understand the benefits and some of the risks. Because it's not all just benefits. You've got to balance it. But that comes through communication and understanding. So that's a big part of all of this. So I guess to kind of conclude this brainstorming conversation, why don't we look at each of us offering a view of what do we see in 10 years' time? Is that, do you fancy doing that? I mean, Renjith, would you like to throw out a vision? What's it going to look like in 10 years' time in this context, do you think?
I really I feel everything will be virtualized. Nobody needs to go in a different place to do a meeting.
Okay.
Even they can do a meeting from their home. These kind of things, like everything gonna be virtual.
Well, let me add one, because I think it'd be good for you to do the concluding one, Chris. So let me add a view here. So 10 years' time, that puts us at 2025, more or less. It's a tough one to look out that far, but I would say that what we're seeing is experimental today, meaning the tools primarily, such as the wearable tech we see in front of us right now, including things like smartwatches, Google Glass type devices, but also technology that is part of clothing or briefcases or cars or whatever it might be, will be pretty commonplace. So the focus, I see, will not be on these in the same way that we don't talk about the phone or the computers so much as we used to when they first appeared. We're kind of used to this. It'll be evolving it that gets real close to that vision that companies like Fujitsu talk about, that make life better for people, enable people to do amazing things, I suppose you could say, where these are simply methods to achieve bigger things. And it could well prompt a lot more we can't even imagine right now even. It's amazing to think what can happen in just a decade. Look at what's happened in the past decade that we couldn't quite see a decade ago would already be happening.
That's true.
Yeah, so we'll see a more connected world, even more connected than it is, maybe connected with more equality than currently. So it might become more universal that more and more people are able to communicate with each other using some of these tools and channels than currently can. And maybe we might be in a position that we actually, each of us, don't care how it works. It just works. We use our device to talk visually or audibly with someone, get something done, or whatever it might be, wherever we are. That will be fantastic. And I believe that is really possible in 10 years' time.
I agree, and I see it from the prism of in education. I'm also an educator and a communicator, and for me, an educator is a communicator. You have to communicate with people and make sure they understand. And it's a transformational business. Education is a transformational business. You want to transform their minds, their perceptions, to enable them to reach their potential. My vision for 2025, I'll be 40 years old at that time. I think, and I would like to see myself as being an educator, addressing a global audience with the use of technology. People can listen to me in the supermarket, in the car. They can pass courses wherever they are, right, without being bound to a specific place and time. So the important is that they learn. And of course, they can demonstrate their learning also by recording a podcast or using any other way to demonstrate their competences and their skills and their knowledge. And I'll be able to assess that, and they can progress with that. So it's a more, and I love augmented reality. I would love to see that being very affordable, right, and more integrated in our everyday life, in a personal life as well, not only in business. I think if the prices go down, if it becomes affordable for everyday people, I think, for instance, I'm an expatriate living in Finland, but I'm from Greece originally. It would be great to have a very realistic experience talking to my family and experiencing Christmas in Greece without even being here. Of course, it's even better if I am here, but I think it opens new possibilities. And you're right, you mentioned that 10 years ago we couldn't envision what would happen. I remember I was working for the Olympic Games in Athens in 2004, and now 2014 ending, 10 years, things have changed drastically. I remember I used to have my hotmail.com email, and that was the means of communication. And now I have 10 emails I'm going through, and tens of social media networks. And 7 blogs I'm catering for, and it's just a totally different everyday experience.
I think one of the interesting issues even now is filtering out things that aren't of interest to you amongst all the massive information that is magnitudes more than it was a decade ago, and concentrating on the things that matter. And there's a big challenge for everyone. That's right at the heart of using this to empower people, it seems to me. So
exactly. And just to conclude, this is very important, the point you mentioned and you picked up, because I think that at the end, only the good ones will survive. Only the quality bloggers, podcasters, educators, communicators will be presented, because exactly because of this saturation. Everyone is doing something. Everyone is a communicator. Everyone has the possibility. Right. So it is competitive, but then the people have to develop those skills to select what's of quality, what's of relevance, and then perhaps then we become even better and better in this competitive and very selective environment. So I think all in all, the whole society will become intelligent and knowledgeable. So I'm looking forward to the next 10 years.
That sounds a great way to conclude what we're doing in this conversation, Chryssa. So thanks to you. Thanks to Renjith for being part of the conversation as well. Maybe I could just add one thing to mention, which is to find out more about what we're talking about and why we're talking about. This is part of the Fujitsu Insiders Master Your Business program, and you can find more about that on the master-your-business.com website and blog, where we and another 20 plus Fujitsu Insiders are busy sharing our thinking about all of this stuff in one way or another, are we not? So anyway, great discussing. Yeah, great discussing with you both as we look to the new year that's fast approaching. So I wish you both a very happy new year in the meantime.
Happy New Year.
Thanks,
and to everyone else that's listening to this podcast, and virtual hugs and kisses. Check out our masteryourbusiness.com blogs and follow us and comment, like us, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you both.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Thank you.